All right, so I have After Effects open. I'm going to click on New Project. You should get a screen that looks similar to this. Go ahead and click on New Composition. And you can, sometimes I'll title this one like, main, just so I know this is the main composition I'm working with. I'm going to change the settings here. So we're not going to do HD, which is 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to change the width, type in 1080 also. The lock aspect ratio was checked, so when I changed the width, it also changed the height. So I'm going to uncheck that, and now I can change the height. So now it says width 1080 pixels, height 1080 pixels. You can leave the frame rate at what it defaults to at 29, basically 30 frames per second. Right now it shows a duration of 30 seconds. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a minute. Or actually, sorry, I did that wrong. So that's what I'm changing. So 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's frames, seconds, minutes, hours. And press OK. You can come in and change these settings at any time later. So if I press OK, and let's say I wanted to change the composition time, I wanted to make it 2 minutes, or I wanted to change the size of the frame, I can come back up to composition and then composition settings. I can also change the background color, if I wanted to make it red. Let's make it a yellow. So it changes the background color that way. Okay, so now your composition has been set up. Now down here, it's going to work similar to Premiere, where you have your timeline. Now you also have this side on the left where you're going to have your different layers. So you'll probably be working with quite a few text layers. So you can come up to Layer and New and press Text Layer. You can also click directly on the Type tool. So at the top, you'll see a tool that looks like the uppercase T. Click on that, and I can click and drag, or actually I can just click, and I can start typing. So right now my text is white, and I can't see it on the yellow, so I'm going to select that. Over on my right side here, it's white, and I'm going to change it to black. And now you can see the word, okay? So it says testing. Actually, let me type that again. Oops. All right, then after I type, I can click back over on my selection tool. So you'll see after I make the text layer, it's added this layer here, the bottom. So, and it says testing. So I know this is the layer associated with that word. Over to the left, you'll see a little small kind of triangle arrow. Press that and toggle it down so you see some menu options, text and transform. And those have the little arrows as well. You can toggle those down. Sorry, I toggled down transform, and I see anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. Okay, so again, layer, arrow, toggle down, transform, and then on position, you'll see 2 numbers. This is your horizontal and vertical position, so I can drag these around. So I can change the position values, I can move this around. So as I'm clicking on the number by position, one that says 415, I know it's hard to see it there, but clicking on the number and I'm just dragging it left or right,
and it's changing the position value of that text layer. I can click on the number and drag the number to the right and drag it around, and it moves it up and down. Okay. You can also do the same thing with rotation. So now, before I rotate it, you can see, let me bring this down a bit. You can see this little anchor point. I know it's hard to see, sorry for that. That anchor point is going to be the point that the animation or the text layer rotates around. So because it's on the bottom left corner, when I now click on the drag the rotate, you see the word is rotating around that point right there. I can change where the anchor point is. So let's say I want to rotate the word from the center. I can do that. However, first, let's go ahead and make this word a little bit bigger because it's kind of small on our composition. Once I have this text layer selected, you should see a menu. It should be on your right side that says character. If you don't see it, it will be under window and then click on character. So this is the characteristics of the text layer. So I can see the size right now is at 36 points. This is the font size. I'm going to click and drag that up. So it's bigger. You can, I was having a little trouble with the mouse earlier, but once it's bigger and I'm on the selection tool, I can click directly on the text object or the layer itself and move it around with my mouse. Okay. Let's make this bold. Okay. And we'll just start it at the top here. Okay. And then back to rotating. Actually, no, let's put it back in the center. I want to move this anchor point to the very center so that my rotation will make it spin around, you know, like a airplane propeller, something like that. So at the top, there's what says pan behind, but in parentheses, anchor point tool. I can click on that. Then I can click directly, just be careful, click directly on that anchor point and move it, moving it right to the center of the word. Let go. Come back to my selection tool. Now under transform, I'll toggle it back down and rotation. Now it's rotating around the anchor point, which is in the center of the word. You can do stuff with scale as well. So this is again under the transform controls, adjusting the scale and opacity. So you see what these do. So just take some playing around with it. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. So now those are the basics of the transform controls for your layer. Now we want to animate it. Let's say I want this word to come from the top and move its way down. Actually, no, I'm going to go from the bottom and it flies up to the top, okay? So the beginning state is outside the frame. So I'm going to start with my text layer at the bottom, outside the frame. And I'm wanting to make a position change. I'm not changing the scale or anything else or rotation. I just want it to move up to the top. So I come down to transform. So I'm going to edit the position. So again, this is where it's starting. Now I'm going to click the stopwatch beside the word position. When you click on it, it turns blue. And now you'll notice it made a keyframe right where my playhead is. So I had it right at the beginning. This is playhead just like Premiere. So it was right at the beginning. And you see this little diamond shape? That's the keyframe right there. So it has made a keyframe of the beginning point of this position, which is down here out of frame at the bottom. All right, so we want it to animate where over, let's say, a second, it moves from out of frame up to the top. So you can look at your clock. There's a better term for it, I forget, but just your timing of your video piece here. So if I move the playhead over to 1 second, so you see 1 here, and it shows, let me zoom in. I'm zooming in by clicking, dragging this little slider here, so I'm zooming in. So this, where the playhead is at 1 second. Now I know at this point is where the text layer needs to be at the top. So now I can, you can do it manually by clicking and dragging up, or you can just change just the vertical position on this number to the right. And you notice it's created this line. It's showing the motion, the path that has been animated onto this layer. Okay, so showing starts down here, and at this point, it's up at the top. So now, because the stopwatch is on, I turn the stopwatch on. When I let go, I moved this layer. It made a new keyframe right here. So I have the one at the beginning, the one at the end. Now if I move my playhead, you see that it moves the text layer. If I move it to beginning, I click outside, so I just see my frame. Press spacebar to play it, and you just have an animation. Okay? That process is the same process that you'll be doing for pretty much everything. So make sure you kind of have that down so that you have the beginning state, the ending state, turn on the stopwatch, make that beginning keyframe and end keyframe, and it will do it automatically when you make any sort of change. Have it over a certain amount of time, and that's the basics for making an animation, making something change over time. Now I can move these keyframes. So let's say I want the motion to be a lot slower. Well, going from out of frame to the top, I can have that happen over 5 seconds. So I can click on this keyframe and move it all the way over to 5. Now it's going to go a lot slower. That same change is going to happen, just instead of happening over 1 second, it's going to happen over 5 seconds. Okay. Or say I want it to be really fast. Okay, so I move the keyframe all the way over to 7 frames. So over 7 frames, boom. Okay. Any questions? All right. Next up, we're gonna repeat this layer, this testing layer. We're just gonna have a specific effect. So let's say the word flies up to the top, and then we want to have this word repeated to make this kind of pattern from top to bottom. So what I mean by that is, I'm gonna click on this layer, and I'm gonna press Command D, probably Windows D on your computer, and you'll see it's duplicating, D for duplicating, this text layer. So now you see testing 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now let me click on testing 2, and once I've selected this layer, now I can come here, click this one. Okay, hold on, before I do that,
because I duplicated it, it's duplicating the animation as well. So I don't want to duplicate the animation. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch to turn it off. It will get rid of that animation for this duplicated layer. So now there's no, the movement is not there. And then I can say drag it down. Actually, I'm going to delete these others that I duplicated, and I'm just going to duplicate this layer that doesn't have the animation. Okay, so now all of these, move this one down. Now click on testing 4, move it down. Layer 5. Let's duplicate it one more time. And there's ways of getting these like perfectly lined up. I'm not worried about taking the time for that. Okay, so now you'll see you have multiple layers here. This first one is the only one that has motion. But now since you can see it moving behind everything else, because those layers are visible. So I'm actually going to change where these layers appear, which is basically just like Premiere, changing the starting point of the clips. So if I hold my mouse over the left side of the second layer, so I can start it shortly after this animation stops. So we'll just put it, put it like right here. On layer 3, I'm gonna have it start a little further back. And so I'm kind of making this stair step effect. So now this one flies up, and then when the playhead hits this one, it appears, and they appear one after the next. So let me play that all together. Okay, so this bottom layer has that position animation, and then each of these duplicated layers that don't have an animation, they just appear one after the other. So I'm not actually animating or changing anything on the layers. I just duplicate them, make them appear at different times, one after the other. Okay? Everybody with me? Any questions? Next up, let's talk a little bit about adding effects. So over here, again, on the right side, I have a window that says Effects and Presets. If I click on Window, if you don't see it there, you can click on Window and let's see. Yeah, select Effects and Presets right here. And it gives you all these options, okay? Within all these options, they each have it's a drop-down menu that has effects inside. So let's say, something you might be using a lot is the distort section. So I'm gonna toggle the distort down, and you'll see these are all these different effects just in the distort menu. Okay. Let's try. I'm going to try magnify. So if I click on magnify, I'm going to drag it to this layer. I'm just clicking and dragging, and see it highlights that I can let go. Now there's an effect on this 6th layer. If I toggle it down, before there was just text and transform. Now I have an effects option. So I can toggle down effects, and you'll see where it says magnify, because I added magnify. Let me toggle that one down as well. And then these are all the options within the magnify effect. Now some of these effects can get really funky, get really weird really quick, and you may have to watch individual tutorials for a specific effect.
Okay, so this is where it gets a little weird. For sphere eyes, I have to move the center of the sphere. And you can tell these are effects that I do not use very often. And then I can increase it. So you see this effect that's happening, making this kind of like bulge effect. So I had to move the center of the sphere down to this text layer, and then I can adjust the radius setting to make this effect. Now, you'll notice there is a stopwatch beside radius. Anything that has a stopwatch, it can be animated. It can change over time. Okay, so let's say the word flies up, all the text things pop down, and then right here we want it to bulge. So this is my beginning state. It's normal, just the kind of standard what it popped up as. I'm going to click on the stopwatch by radius. Now I'm going to move it ahead a little bit and increase the settings so that it bulges like this. Now it's made the keyframes here. So now if I play it from the beginning, okay, so just like that, just a few minutes, we have motion, this pattern that's repeated of the words, and an effect with a setting that's been animated, changed over time. You know, you're going to be using the position transformations a lot, I would imagine. So again, just to go over that, let's say this one bulges, and now it's stationary. You know, I'm moving the playhead around, nothing's happening. We want all of these text layers to move left, right, up, down, and they're going to leave the screen. We can start with this one. I'm going to go back, toggle down, transform, position. Now the position for this first layer, because this was the one that flew up from the bottom, the position stopwatch is still on. So I can say I want this state to animate from here, again, to flying off. If it's already on, you have to come over and click on the keyframe over on the left side. This will add a keyframe of where it's at currently. So at this point in time, I have my playhead right here. I'm going to click on this one, the keyframe, add keyframe. You notice it adds a keyframe right here. Then move this forward a bit. And let's say this flies over to the right. Okay, now we move my playhead back. I'll go to my second text layer. Click the stopwatch, move it ahead. This one, let's say we'll have it fly to the left. Leave the frame to the left. Now to the third layer. This is just a repetitive process, but you'll get the hang of it once you start doing it a lot. Position, stopwatch on. Let's say this one flies up. Oh, let me undo that. Because what I did accidentally was I changed the position of the starting point. I wanted to start here. I gotta move the playhead forward. Then move it up. I'll go to the next one. Click the stopwatch. Move the playhead forward. Let's have this one go kind of to the right again. Layer 5, stopwatch, move the playhead forward. Have this one go to the left. And then last one. This is the one that has the sphere eyes effect on it.
transform, position, actually want it to be right here, so I'm going to move my keyframe back, play it forward, and then have this one go to the bottom. All right, let's watch from the beginning. So it's a tedious, repetitive process, kind of doing the same clicking over and over again, especially if you have multiple layers. But I just have to change the beginning state after this bulge here. This is the beginning state for each of these layers, and then I just have to change where they end up at for the ending state. It will come a little bit more naturally once you just start actually doing the clicking yourself, because it's just a new tool. It just takes a little bit of muscle memory to get used to it, and that's only going to come by actually making the animation happen. Anything I need to go over again? Okay. You can bring in shapes, so you have a come up to layer, new shape layer, and then you have to make sure it's selected on the little star tool, create shape. Now it's on let's just try the pen tool. Let's see, what shape should I do? Maybe like an hourglass shape, or sure. I don't know why you would need a shape like this. Don't feel like you have to use these. You can do everything you need to do just with text. Now, if you're taking 103, type an image, and you're learning about making things in Illustrator or Photoshop, you're welcome to bring some of those skills in here. There's a million and one tutorials about bringing in shapes from Illustrator into After Effects. Feel free, but it's not required for this project. I think that's what this person was doing. Like here, they probably made this paper shape. And, it's just a rectangle rotated. These little pieces cut out, and then blue and red lines, and then they changed the typeface and the color to look like it's writing on there. So this could be an example of how you use other shapes or designs from Illustrator. Oh, also, yeah, they have a watch and sunglasses as well. So if you are taking the other class, or you've already taken it and you're familiar with Illustrator, you're welcome to bring in some of those elements. So you see, they have an opacity change here. It goes from 0 opacity to full opacity and disappears. And then they have all this text as one layer moving up. So let's say like falls. I can make go back to my type tool, click and drag in space. I can type in falls. Let me copy and paste. And then, obviously they had it, really big so that it looks like it's, going up and down off the screen. But then I could just animate this whole thing moving up, which is basically what they're doing here. So some of it looks like, wow, what is this effect? Is all this stuff moving? It's like, it's actually not that hard. And then shorter than, and then this moves over. you know, it has kind of like glittering effect. All it is just these little orange and blue shapes popping up. It's with opacity changes to look like it's glimmering. This is just a warp effect that you can apply just like I did the Spherize thing. That's all it is. They put that warp effect onto the text layer. Words popping up. And they have a color palette. That's what's working really well for them. They're kind of sticking to this color palette. I would highly recommend doing that as well. Okay, this is rotation. So you can do this in After Effects. You can even make this circle layout of the text in Illustrator, bring it in to After Effects, and then just rotate it very easily. So a lot of it is movement. Like, this is actually, they're not even doing that many effects and stuff, right? It's just they have a really good eye for the motion and composition and placement, things like that. This one had lots of effects, so there's not much movement. These are all like different effects that are kind of skewing things, like melting, dissolving things. Again, kind of warping and waving, because it's just one word that's just being manipulated. Same here. But it all comes together, and you know, again, that same kind of warpy, wavy thing the other one used. Think about, you know, compositional effects too. Like, I think this was a really great moment. It's easy just to have words pop up on screen. Well, what if they pop up on the screen, but then they go around the edge? You know, it just adds visual interest. Think about those, and think about, you know, scale. Like, this word girl is like, it's massive, taking up from top to bottom. And then you have others that are, oh, I like how the size of scared. But then you have others that are smaller, like B.